Hey guys, back with another impressions video, and I know I said in my Final Fantasy video I'm just going to be playing Final Fantasy games as far as games that aren't new releases go, but I only had a week to play another game until Monster Hunter 4 and Majora's Mask, both on the 3DS, came out. And those are both games I'm going to be playing. So I wanted to get a shorter game finished, and Final Fantasy, none of those games are really all that short. So I decided to go with Castlevania Circle of the Moon on the Game Boy Advance. Now, I don't actually have a Game Boy Advance or a GameCube with a Game Boy player, so the only way I can actually play Game Boy Advance games is on the Wii U. They've got the GBA Virtual Console there. And I thought this would be a cool thing to see what the Game Boy Advance games are like on the Wii U. And pretty cool. When you play them on the actual TV, it's like you can do it like in like a stretched out kind of mode, or like a smaller mode. And the smaller mode is still really big, so the games look pretty pixelated. Um, but when you play on the gamepad, it looks fantastic. And that's the way I'd recommend to play these Game Boy Advance games on the Wii U. It's just use the gamepad. It really looks great on there. But yeah, this is going to be a shorter video. I don't imagine this is going to be long. There's not too much to say about this game. I just wanted to give my brief impressions on it. And the Castlevania games, like I said before, I much prefer these Metroidvania RPG Castlevania games. And like, not that I don't like the older ones. I like them. I prefer this. As an RPG guy, I prefer these types. And I've played Symphony of the Night, which is my favorite, of course. Order of Ecclesia for the DS, which I thought was okay. And well, although that had a kind of a different structure to it, and Dawn of Sorrow for the DS, which I didn't like because of the touchscreen stuff. I'd like to try that game again, but like the touchscreen stuff like made that game unbearable for me. Like I just couldn't stand the touchscreen stuff. But the GBA ones, I haven't played any of these. So I thought I'd start with the first of the three. I don't think it was a launch title for the GBA, but I believe it was pretty close. And I remember, when this game came out, I had a few friends that had it, and I remember like the screen was so dark when you were playing this game on that original Game Boy Advance. Like it was almost impossible to play this game. You had to get like those lights that would like go over the Game Boy Advance screen, like the night light type things. Like it was ridiculous, but much better playing it here. I gotta say. Although of course you had the Game Boy Advance SP that came out later, which fixed that lighting issue, but. Yeah, this game, I really enjoy it. In fact, out of all the Castlevania games I've played, this is probably my second favorite. I still have a lot to get to, of course, but no, it's not as good as Symphony of the Night. In fact, I think this might have been the next Castlevania game after that. I could be wrong, but it goes with that style again, where you've got a giant castle, tons of backtracking, you're filling out your map, trying to get that percentage up, finding a bunch of hidden items, basically beating a boss, getting some kind of ability that unlocks different parts of the castle for you. It's classic stuff, but really enjoyable, really rewarding exploration, which is one of my favorite parts of video games. I mean, this is kind of like a dream game for me. I mean, platformers and RPGs, like my two favorite genres, combine them and you get this. It's very hard for me not to like a game like this. And it doesn't have like any gimmicky. Like, there's really not too many gimmicks in this game. Okay, story, I'm not even really talking about the story. Like, the Castlevania games, I never take the storyline seriously. I never care about the storylines in these games. I don't know. Maybe some people are into it. I can't muster any interest in the storyline for these games. I just basically mash through the dialogue, what little dialogue there is, or is barely any dialogue. You play as Nathan Graves, though, who... I don't know anything about him, really. I couldn't tell you anything about the story because I just skipped through it because it's just, I don't know. Not really into the Castlevania plot. But gameplay-wise, like, that's where it's at for me with these games. It's all gameplay. I guess I'll talk about the visuals first, though. It's, being a Game Boy Advance game, it looks maybe like a Super Nintendo game, I guess. I think the Game Boy Advance was weaker than a Super Nintendo, though. So it doesn't look as good as Symphony of the Night, but it still looks pretty good. I like the look of the game. Really nice 2D sprites, great backgrounds. Again, it's not a flashy game or anything. The animations are kind of they're okay. Uh, but I don't know. It's not the greatest looking game, but it's fine. And because it's 2D, it holds up. Um, Audio wise, the music has a lot of like remixes of like older Castlevania tunes, and they're fantastic. Like the soundtrack in this game is phenomenal. Even the new songs in this game are great. Like I absolutely love the soundtrack. Um, but gameplay wise, like I said before, it's your standard Metroidvania stuff. I guess the one new system they've got added into this game is the DSS system, where you get like cards that are like drops from the enemies, and you kind of combine them to create different effects, which you use with your magic. They're like your magic, I guess. You have magic points. So if you press like the L button when you have a certain card combination, it will give you a different effect, like maybe making your whip a fire whip, or a vine whip, or making a fire sword, or giving you a buff that increases your damage depending on how much of the map you've got completed. And there are a ton of these different combinations, and it's really fun finding the different cards and kind of going through all the combinations and using them for different parts of the game. For instance, there's one section of the game, like a sewer area, with like ice enemies. And I found this place very annoying until I realized, hey, I have this combo that lets me reflect ice attacks, and it basically wastes magic and gives me health every time I get hit by an ice attack. So I equipped that combo, and I got through the place really easily. So you can do stuff like that. So it's a really fun system. It encourages a lot of experimentation, which I really liked. Other than that, you don't have an actual sword in this game like in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You have your whip, so it's your classic whipping gameplay, and you've got like you can do the whip spin attack like in Super Castlevania 4. One thing, this game is really challenging. This game is very difficult. Symphony of the Night I thought was actually really easy, and I think that's one of the main things people complain about with that game. If you didn't if you wished that game had a challenge, play Circle of the Moon. The first half of this game I thought was pretty easy, but the second half is actually pretty brutal. Like the enemies just do tons of damage. There's a lot of really treacherous obstacles, and like later in the game, like there's like this big stretch where you have to go for a while without a save point, and then you get to a boss. And the bosses in the second half of the game are very hard too. They take a long time to kill. Yeah, even with this combo system here, it's hard to really be cheap. I died a lot playing this game, like, and the final boss is really hard too. It took me a lot of tries. Of course, you got save points littered throughout the castle. You got some warp points to cut down on backtracking, though there is still quite a bit of backtracking. So, but it's fine because you're fighting enemies while you're backtracking and gaining experience. I don't mind it so much here. But yeah, I guess that's all to really say about the game. I mean, it's like the Symphony of the Night template, but with like the feel of the older Castlevanias in terms of combat. Having your whip. And of course, like with every Castlevania game, this game feels kind of stiff with the animations and stuff like that, which can be a bit frustrating at times. But I don't know, what can I say? It's a really fun, enjoyable game. One, I guess the one thing I can say about this game that I didn't like, in the second half of the game, they get a bit carried away with like block and switch puzzles, which I think have no place in a platformer. And unfortunately, they employ those gimmicks. That's, I think, like I'd say like at the 75% mark of this game, the level design starts to kind of take a downturn. But then it gradually picks back up in the last bit of the game. But that's really all I can say about the game negative, other than like the stiff controls sometimes. And I'm sure like the next two GBA games make this game seem dated in comparison, which is why I started with this one. But yeah, that's about it, guys. I actually went on longer than I was expecting to, but you can get this on the Virtual Console for like, I think it was like $7.99, which is a great deal. It took me 10 hours, I think, to beat. And there's actually some really cool post-game stuff that I don't really want to spoil for anyone. But for the $8, definitely worth it. And I'm looking forward to the next two games in the GBA Castlevania trilogy, because apparently the third game, Area of Sorrow, apparently that game is fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, that's it, guys. I want to thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.